everything you do. Fully alive.
Oh,
well,
hello,
and welcome in to Duzie Live today.
We love starting usually just before we start. We pull up a song.
It's going again. It's so good. It's
fully
a little
alive.
replay.
It is such a good song.
Are you living fully alive today? Because we are. We are so glad you've joined us here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
and everything else.
What other options could there be?
Good night. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Megan Morris, yes, you're first. Woo! Well, at least first to hop into the chat. Thank you for joining us.
Today, the theme is all about unpacking your transition. And I was thinking about this. I've been going through some of my journals lately and just looking at how often Susie and I packed and unpacked
a lot.
And over the last 30-some years, it's 700 plus. I mean, that is a lot of
packing and
unpacking and packing and unpacking. But today we're going to unpack our transition, because I think all of us go through transitions, and sometimes we just keep collecting. If you go to my garage, you're going to see that we love collecting. There comes a time when you have to unpack it because you need to move forward freely, and you got to let go of some of that stuff. So that's what we're going to be looking today, unpacking our transition.
So welcome in. If you are joining us here live, we'd love for you to go into the chat and say hi and tell us where you're coming from. So Megan, thank you. She's trying to get right into that chat space. Open it all up wide, Megan. She says, I've seen all your luggage, and it's a lot of packing and unpacking. It's true. Back in the day, early days of Teen Street, when luggage was nearly unlimited, how many bags did we transfer over to Germany?
You could have, your luggage could be 70 pounds per bag. And that year at Teen Street, we flew over 32 bags. Now
we had a team going with us.
Everyone on our team took one, and then we had ours. And I remember shipping over Illusions that weighed 100 pounds. And they're like, oh well, that's all right. Unbelievable times that was. But when we got to Germany,
we had to unpack
and
for
it was
sure.
Like, hopefully we brought everything, but many times we realized we brought too much. And the same thing happens as we transition. Oftentimes we're carrying too much.
So I'd just like to say hi to those who have just popped into the chat again. Megan Morris, she was the first into the chat space. She tries to get there first, and whoop, you got it, Megan. Catherine, great to have you from the UK. Thanks for jumping in. Michaela from Portugal. Stephen, it's tomorrow morning. Wow, how's Wednesday over there in Malaysia? Hannah Skirton, hi, coming from the UK. Rob from the UK. And Alice, thanks for popping back into this space with us. So good to have you. We know
there's more of you on because we can see how many are there in the space. So please, everybody,
be brave.
Say hello and where you're coming in from.
It helps us know who to speak to. Yeah, thinking about transition and packing and unpacking. Another word for transition is change. And the last couple of weeks on Duzie Live here, we've been talking about good grief with Kim Kukura. Wow, what an amazing time. If you have missed that, please check into your replays if you were here live.
Or go onto our YouTube channel, which is Duzie Space Potter. And the full replays are there. You just sit down, push the button. You can fast forward, you can reverse, you can whatever. It's all there for you.
Yeah, so Katie's in as well. Hi, Katie, coming in from France. And Stephen, oh, sorry, you're not already into Wednesday. You're on Tuesday night.
Almost good night. Almost good night.
So you were saying good morning to us. So that's awesome.
So Stephen, it's time for your almost nighttime snack. So you're welcome to do that. What others of you have breakfast and other whatever. Yeah, noodle time.
Mamak, they're in Malaysia. The best.
Mamak time.
The best. Awesome.
So as we look at the whole area of transition, we were looking for what is a great way to launch today? What is a great way to get all of our heads in the same space? We were looking for a video that would help us all understand the best way the best way to look at our life in the transitions. And it's like, hurry up and change. Change is the process of of just it's momentum in your change. And so we found this video that I think speaks the deepest to what many of us go through often. So please enjoy this, and we'll be right back.
Boys! Boys? The sheriff! The sheriff! We gotta move! We gotta move!
Have you ever felt that way? It's like we've got to hurry up and go. There's this thing going on. We put everything we possibly can get in there. We squish it all in, and it explodes on us. And
It definitely has happened to me so many times.
I find that if we don't work hard to unpack our transitions, they'll end up exploding on us. And so we want to give you the tools today to walk through. I think right now, because of the virus around the world, because of people losing their jobs, because of people moving from one place to another, or not being able to move like they thought they were, we're all very interesting in transition at the same time. I think all of us go through it, but very rarely do we have multiple people, almost everybody on the planet, going through at the same time. So I think it's really important for each of us to understand what we're going through, what have we packed for the journey, how to unpack some of the stuff that's not needed, and move forward. So today is a lot of self-awareness as well.
Yeah. So once again, we thank you for showing up for yourself, but also showing up for others, because some of you are here because not only are you going through a transition, but you're helping others do that as well. And so thank you for showing up to learn for yourself, but hopefully you have stuff to help others as well.
Yeah. So maybe we'll take a poll.
Time for the poll.
A little bit of self-awareness poll here.
Here's our poll that we just want to start off with. What type of transition or change do you need to unpack today? We want you to get one of these unpacking transition experiences in your heart.
Now, some of you may say, well, it's all of them. Choose the one you think that is the highest one. Is it emotional?
You're feeling a lot.
Is it relational?
People connections.
Is it physical?
Something that you're doing or not doing.
Maybe it's a spiritual transition.
How you're understanding God, or you're connected to God and yourself.
So we got the polls coming in. Right now, emotional is 71%, and relational is coming up behind that. So right now we've got most people that are saying it changed again. Ooh, relational is growing now.
Okay, this is good.
It is like a pipe organ. These two are just going back and forth like this. Emotional's
This is where we're at the moment. We've got the emotional at, well, it was shortly ago different, but it's 56. Relational is 31. Physical is 12, and spiritual is 0.
So if you haven't voted yet, take a moment and think about whatever transition, or you're maybe in multiple ones. What's mostly going on? Is it emotional? Is it relational? Is it physical?
Or is it spiritual? Thank you for taking that
Let's
poll.
end with that poll right there. So it looks like 56% of us are going through emotional transition.
And also others who have jumped into the chat. Thank you, Kim, for joining us back here again. I think you maybe aren't working this morning. That's cool. You've got your rhythm of Tuesdays to be with us.
Here as well.
We so appreciate that, from Germany.
Yeah.
So we have so many of you with emotional. Would you mind in the chat, if you can identify it, what is your transition that you would like to unpack today?
And maybe
put it in words.
It may be more than one that you just want to list in there, but we want to each of us choose one transition that together, it's more of a workshop today. We're going to take you step by step through the path that will help you hopefully unpack your transition, hopefully find yourself light enough to move forward in a better way. So if
Dan,
you would, write those
Dan
down.
and I have identified ours, and I think we're collectively going through very similar ones, but the one I'm going to go through in the whole process today is my physical transition. Today is day 92 of exercising every day. Woo! Body weight exercises, in addition to my 30 to 60 minutes of walking. 90 days. It is a transition from where I was, the old normal, towards the new normal. I'm not there yet, but I'm in process. So
write that down.
that's what I'm in at the moment.
So Susie, you write that one down. For me, it's more of an emotional change. In my past, there was definitely, we're doing a lot of traveling, we're doing a lot of speaking, a lot of interaction with OM around the world. And now we're in this place where we're not traveling. No one is, but I don't see there's a lot of traveling in the future. It's a lot of online. It's building a whole new platform. Face-to-face is a whole lot easier than online. And so emotions are there, running very strong. Sometimes there are voices in my head, emotions saying, you are just too stupid. You are just too old. You can't do this. And then other times there's like, yes, this is the greatest thing. So for me, there's this pendulum that's swinging all the time, mostly in the area of emotion.
Yeah. So what about you? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Can you name it? Do you know what it is? You can just generalize it, or you can be a little bit more specific. And we're going to use our example through the whole thing just to help us understand what's going on. Yeah. We've got one, reset the poll. And then also, while you're thinking about that, we want to ask one more question. How would you...
Oh, this is another poll.
Oh, nearly forgot the sound. Thank you for that. How would you rate your transition ability? Maybe some of you are saying, transition is easy for me. Easy peasy, no problem. Some of you might say transition is hard for you. It's difficult for you to have changes, transition.
And this is the normal. It's normally easy.
Normally for
hard.
you, transition is sometimes easy and sometimes hard.
Right now, it looks like 100% of the people are saying sometimes easy, sometimes hard. I guess it depends as well on the transition you're in.
Sure.
But sometimes, it's just changed. 10% of you are now saying transition is hard.
Yeah, I've had some very easy, both Dan and I have identified, and we've been talking about this a lot this week, actually. We are early adapters. So there's people who adapt early. When a change comes, you can just jump in and go. In fact, we're probably the ones causing the change many times. And then others, they can get there a little later. And some people take a while on the curve to
we've
get
even
to
met a few
transition.
people that never get there.
They're called laggards.
So that's the bell curve. Oh, what we got here? 14% of you now are saying it is normally hard for me. 85% are saying it's sometimes easy, sometimes hard. That's probably pretty normal.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking at right there. So an 85%.
So we're going to end this transition.
Easy, sometimes hard.
Poll, so you can see it. Can you see it there?
Yeah.
Hopefully you're able to see it. And if some of you are working on a computer and all you can see is the poll, if you go up to the very corner, there's a little arrow, you push it, that'll make it go away, but you can't make it come back after it. So make sure you see what you need to see, click it, and then you're back in
Dan
the chat.
knows because he was in the chat last week's. All right, some of you have put it right down here. Thank you so much for writing your transition. Stephen says, I need motivation to start exercise.
Amen. Preach it.
Do it, Stephen.
It's so hard.
Yeah. I can do hard things. That's what I say every day. Megan says, I think this is unexpected transition, as in none of us were prepared for it. You have spoken it so truly. Rob says, emotional, from familiar and settled to unsettled, new, unfamiliar. Yes. Yep. You've just had a big transition locationally.
It's hard to take a journey with a blindfold on, and sometimes that's what transition looks like.
Yeah. Megan says, I need motivation to do anything. Never mind exercise. Thanks for the reality. Hannah, for me, transitioning away from home is easy, but transitioning back home is harder.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That is true. Nadine, being in a family setting after actually having taken steps to be independent. Yeah, it's hard to be an adult back at home again with the family. Thank you, Nadine. Catherine, transitioning from experiencing emotions that are unfamiliar to me, like anxiety and the new normal. Thank you, Catherine. Kim, adjusting to emotional energy adjustments as I work in the hospital and begin grief partnering. And Kim, just a shout out again. Thank you
Well done.
for the last 2 weeks. You were such a master at helping us get there. And now you're in that space as well. Katie, ongoing transition. Just in my first 6 months of moving to a new country. So there's all the normal cross-cultural transition things, plus extra hard for relational transition because of social distancing. That's right. Nadine says she's agreeing with Hannah as well. Getting home is hard. Alice says, transitioning from being over busy to learning how to live slower and simpler. I need lessons from you, Alice, when you get it. Help me out. Matt, welcome in. Go Steve and join the movement. Megan says, I think also as everyone is transitioning, and so therefore that may impact on other people's, like my old housemate needed to transition to very suddenly working as a nurse in COVID ward. That impacted on me as she needed her own space, and I got kicked out of the house, and all of a sudden I had to find somewhere new to live as well as transition to a new job working from home. Wow. Transitioning to a new job I was prepared for, but not the rest. Ellie, welcome in, Ellie. Transitioning from being busy and around people to being at home and having more time to think and process things I haven't thought about is a blessing and a curse. So real.
Hari, I'm glad you're with us today.
Hari, welcome back. Transition is harder the older I get. And
Preach it, sister. Preach it, sister.
Hari, we're grateful that you're well and you're back home again out of the hospital. We've been praying for you.
I got to tell you just a quick story about an older transition. Yesterday, now this may be too much information.
Okay, here it comes.
But I passed a kidney stone yesterday. Very, very painful.
Yes.
If you've never experienced it, I just want you to imagine like a McDonald's straw in one hand and a brick in the other hand. And you pass that brick through the straw. Just think how the straw feels. That's transition sometimes is really painful, especially in those things like this, Pari, that we're getting older and we can't go back. You can't back up. It's forward. And sometimes it's like, really? Yeah, really. And that transition is very important.
Yeah. So Matt says, great point, Nadine. That is an interesting transition for me. I was away for 6 years and now back home, and it's taken a while to get used to it. We've got a lot of people here in the chat that we're going through very similar things. And I hope as we process through this tool that we're going to work on today, that we can help one another as well. So thank you for putting if you're still thinking about your transition, it comes up later. It's never too late. Please continue to just pop into that chat and put anything you're thinking, questions you have, comments, emotional outbursts. Please have fun with one another, even in the chat. You guys are great at that.
So here we go into the tool that we're going to be using. It's Unpacking Transition. We've spent the last several weeks actually with Kim and researching grief and change and transition. And we realized us, but maybe you as well, we don't unpack transition well enough. And sometimes we find ourselves years later still carrying around the stuff from a bad transition or where we didn't actually complete the transition. So Susie's going to take me on a journey. We have not practiced this beforehand. She was just asking me at breakfast, what are you transitioning? And I started talking. She's like, I want to take you through the tool this morning. It's like, oh my, really? Yeah. So what we're going to do
Thanks for volunteering.
Susie's going to take me through the tool as we explain it. But in the chat, we want you to be maybe answering some of these questions yourself. And I want you to feel the freedom. I'm going to get really vulnerable today. And you can also ask questions along with Susie about my transition. I am stepping up,
extra questions.
and I would like you to spend the morning processing your transition, but also, or afternoon, whatever you are, but also speaking into mine, because I think none of us go through transition by yourself.
That's right.
So today I'm going to need all of you to help me do a little bit of unpacking.
Thank you for that invitation, Dan. So here's where we're going to go. This is called the Bridge of Change, and it's a transition roadmap, and we're going from where we were to where we're going. And this is the transition. The key space in this whole picture, in this whole tool, Bridge of Change, is the bridge. And this is what we're going to focus on, but there are other elements that are coming into the space. Tell us about a bridge.
A bridge. About 2 years ago, a couple friends of ours and us, we went to a place called Baños in Ecuador. Now, I know it means toilet, but we didn't go to the toilet there. We went this beautiful landscape. There were waterfalls.
Some of you have been there. Let us know in the chat if you were there.
Incredible valley. Beautiful, beautiful space. But to get to the waterfalls, you had to climb down a pretty steep cliff with switchbacks back and forth. And then you got to this very long swinging bridge. And not all the wood was maybe as strong as it should be. There were a few holes we saw as we went across. But as you got out farther, you realized the bridge was swinging a little bit. And when you looked down, it was just wild rapids. And there were some moments that took my breath away. There were some moments where it's like, this could fall. I don't know. There's something bad could happen. My mind started going, what would happen if I fell? I wonder how deep that is. Would I be killed immediately? I mean, all this stuff went through. All I was doing was trying to get to the falls. But I got caught up. I actually got stuck partway across the bridge, even to the point of thinking, well, maybe we'll just take a picture and go back. But we actually did make it across, and the waterfalls was unbelievably beautiful. And I think we have that picture in, not of you're driving down the freeway and there's a bridge that you don't even notice. This is a bridge that you have to stop and notice.
Yeah, so this is the tool. I'm going to just flip you through the tool very quickly, and then we're going to come back and transition, help you unpack your transition. So over on the left side is what we call the old normal. It's probably...
Is that me? I'm on the left side.
Yeah, you're the old normal.
I'm the old normal.
So X marks the spot. You were over there. But most of us, it sounds like, are more on the bridge or just getting ready to step on the bridge. And what we're going towards is what we call the new normal. And that's a big question mark because we haven't been there. We haven't seen that change. And so we're going from the X where we were to the question mark where we're going.
Stop there for a moment. I don't know if you've been sent any of these videos that are going. There are some terrible videos going on around. But there was this one video sent to us this week where this lady was talking about how the government and everyone is against her and how she needs to move to the new normal, and she's refusing to move to the new normal. Well, I think it's a really great dream, but the fact is, it isn't that it's a choice. For many of us, where we were, there's a virus there, we can't go back, or there's a bear on that side, or there's a fire, we can't go back. So it isn't that let's do a new normal. It really is. This is something we have to do because there isn't a going back. So keep that in your mind. This isn't just let's do something new. The new normal is happening, and we have to take action on how to actually unpack what we need to unpack to get there successfully.
And I've heard many people talk about progressing through the new normal. Oh, I love this, Rob. Dan, normal? Never. The new, what can we call it for Dan? New normal. Kim says, reminds me of the salvation diagram. Jesus is the bridge. Yes, could be like that too. Matt says, you're young at heart, Dan. Thank you, Matt. Love that.
Young heart.
So in the process of going from the old normal to the new normal, we go over something we're calling the valley of emotions.
The valley of emotions.
Now, Kim was helping us the last week be very aware of our emotions. It's very important in times of transition, grief, change, to be aware and to be fully present in that space.
Now, understand, there are people who believe we just have to get rid of those emotions. We have to bury those emotions, but those emotions are part of you.
That's right.
It would be like saying, I don't need this hand, I'll just cut it off. The emotions are very, very important in our life, and we can't bury them. We actually have to embrace them, but then bring them under self-control to know when they are needed and when they're not needed.
Yeah, that's right. And then, of course, as Dan described in the physical Banos bridge that we went over, there are dangers down below. So what happens if we fall off the bridge or we get stuck on the bridge? There are dangers, and we're going to talk about those dangers as well.
I just thinking, Pari, I just had that moment when we were hiking through the valley in North Georgia, when you stepped off that rock and right in front of you, there was a danger. Do you remember it?
It was a snake.
It was a snake.
It was terrible.
It was that moment of, we're going on a hike. Oh, no, we're not. I mean, it was like, I had to push Pari to it's a little bit of
she got towards the new normal.
We've got to get over this snake. And I think sometimes in life, it's exactly that.
Yep.
We need a little bit of push because we get stuck with, but look at that snake.
That's right.
Let's move past it.
That's right. And then
Sorry
also,
for bringing that up, Pari.
Yeah. I hate snakes. Also on the bridge, there's what we're calling the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or mini steps, micro transitions that help us towards the big transition or getting to the new normal. We're going to talk about that because it's never, if you've ever been on one of these bridges or crossing a snake, it's never one step. It's multiple small steps that get you where you want to be.
Because I think the big transition is almost impossible to think about. So we just take the little ones and we celebrate every step rather than when we get to the waterfalls.
All right, so here, let's get started. You're somewhere between the X, the old normal, and the question mark, the new normal. And let's go towards the new normal because we want to get our vision, we want to get set to looking towards where we're going. Here's a few questions, and I'd love for you to respond to any of those right there in the chat, if you don't mind. But here's some of the questions. Dan, for you, your old normal was what?
Well, I think the transition I'm going to definitely work with is this change in our life right now. So the old normal was we were the next gen specialists for OM. We did a lot of traveling. We were really in between 15 and 20 countries a year, doing a lot of speaking, doing a lot of training, but most everything was face to face. Where the new normal is, it's computer face to computer face. It is creating a lot of content, learning a whole new way of doing things. The online platforms, we're taking almost a course per day at the moment, just trying to learn what this world of online actually looks like and how it works.
Parts of a course.
So we're moving from face to face in the book, face in the computer, face in the
camera.
I don't know if I can do this, but the camera's running.
That's right. Okay, so jump to the new normal. So we've got to set our view so we can cross the bridge. What do you see in the new normal? Like, you're in transition right now, but what does the new normal look like?
It's bigger than I am. That's one of the things that I see, that this thing that we're dreaming about, which we're right now calling the fully alive revolution,
Whoop, whoop.
is very big. It is online. It is community. It is content. It is a group of people moving forward together, being released into a fully alive life, understanding what that means, knowing your purpose and your values and your rhythm, knowing the community you belong to, having an influence in areas that are not influenced, and understanding you have an impact in life. All these things come together in like a membership platform where people are together moving forward. People are free to deconstruct their faith while at the same time reconstructing it. There's a lot going on there specifically for those in their 20s, but we're seeing some interest from outside that as well. So that's what I see the new normal as. And our focus is not just we're going to be speaking all the time, but really help training up the next generation to do a lot of these things, to speak and to coach and to mentor effectively their generation.
All right. Dan is great at imagination. He's great at being futuristic. Whenever we need the vision, Dan is always able to get there so easily.
But here's the problem. It's scary between here and there. I
Thanks
wish
for your
I was
honesty.
there. I really wish I was there. But when we walk and when we talk, we realize we're a long way from there.
All right. So the second question, how do you feel? This is emotionally speaking, not now, but in your new normal. So as you get to that space, what are your emotions that are surrounded with that picture that you're seeing in your new normal?
Like I said earlier, stupid. I think it comes with age, maybe, that I don't get these programs. I work on something, I take the course, and it's like, this just doesn't work.
Okay, pause. You're telling me about the now, but what about how do you feel when you get to the other side?
Oh, I thought you were talking about my emotions now.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Hold those emotions.
Well, when I get to the other side, I won't feel stupid.
How do you feel when you get there?
I think I will feel that there's an impact and there's an influence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll feel that there is something that is benefiting the next generation that somehow at this point, maybe they don't feel they fit. And at that point, they do feel they fit. There is a sense of satisfaction, but also a continued sense of there's more to do. So I don't think there is a place out there that I imagine that you just, okay, I'm going to sit down and put my feet up forever. This is bigger than my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And so there's legacy stuff that I'm also thinking when I come to that point.
All right. So I think you've already jumped into the third question. What are the benefits of this change? I think I heard you say legacy. You're gonna be making an influence, a positive impact on the next generation, and ripple effects all over the world. Is that right? You've got the picture of the new normal. All right. And I see some of you are putting in the chat. Thank you. Continue to do your answers to your question. What does your new normal look like based on these questions? Kim says, new normal, full-time grief ministry, thriving and doing what I love, plenty of time and energy to kayak and travel with Ken. I love that you're having even your relaxation picture as part of your new normal.
Kim, I also want to speak. I don't know if you realize this. Just when you say the word thriving,
that's
the
picture.
root word, it's a Scandinavian word, which means thrive, which means to grasp, to seize, or take a hold of yourself. To thrive means to embrace yourself into the next. It's a beautiful word. I like it in English, but the deeper meaning of thriving is to seize yourself forward. I love that.
David's cheering for the Fully Alive revolution. Kim says, I think it's great if you can imagine, like Dan, your new normal, but what if you can't imagine? I think I'm with you, Megan. I am an early adapter to jump in and do things, but it's hard for me to get the picture. I need to be triggered by someone. And I think that's why we have motivational visionary leaders like Dan, who are able to help us see big pictures. And I think that's one of the pieces of Fully Alive Revolution. We're trying to help paint that picture of the new normal for each of us. And of course, it will be unique, but the Fully Alive Revolution of being that fully alive person.
Just also speaking that, since I'm being vulnerable, yesterday I walked into the kitchen and Duzie was actually in tears because she came to that place where she says, I just can't see it. And this is exactly what you're talking about. I don't
Help
think
me see it, I said.
I don't think I have what it takes. I don't. All in all, those go on and on, because that's a reality. As we move forward, oftentimes we can't see that. Sometimes I think I see too much, but that's why we need each other. Some people can see it, some people can't. We need to work together.
Dale Potter, thanks for jumping in. You're welcome here. Rob says, when you can't quite see the new normal, sometimes it feels like the small steps are all you can actually see to move forward. And Rob, that's a great point. We're going to get there very shortly. But if all we can see is the next little step, then take that step. And the goal is forward momentum towards the new normal. And some of us actually need help. We need coaching. We need visionaries. We need people to support us. We're going to talk about that as well.
Last night I was taking my dog for a walk. And I'm scared of the dark. I literally am scared of the dark. You get me in the dark, I really go a little crazy in the head. And I was taking my dog into dark spaces. And I walked about 3 steps in real darkness. Where we live, it's very dark. But on the fourth step, the motion sensitive light came on, and it was like I had to take 3 steps in the dark, but then the light came on. I think that's the way it is with transition. Sometimes there's a couple steps we have to take in the dark, but then the motion sensor light pops on.
Yeah, and Alice asks, great question, Alice. Is part of seeing the new normal asking God to help you dream? Yes. One of my favorite verses right now is Ephesians 3:20 and 21 that says, now to him who's able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to his power at work within us. So we can imagine maybe just a little bit, and he's able to do immeasurably more. And if we tap in and press into him and ask him to show us and invite him into that space, that's so important. And thank you for drawing that out. Yes. And Cheryl says it's scary because for the older generation who do not know the internet world, it becomes very difficult because the world is moving on and communicating without us. We who thrive on face-to-face interactions feel very left behind.
Someone should write a book about that. We'll call it Left Behind.
What if we look at it as an adjustment, and it would be less fearful as a place to start? So if we look at it as an adjustment instead of the new normal. I love that, Dale. That's good perspective. Awesome. Let's go back to the old normal. Now that we wanted to spend some time in the new normal so that we could see where we're going and see that it's worth it. But
that gives a little bit of hope that there is a future out there.
Let's look at the old normal for a minute. Here's a few questions about this. What's the cost of staying here? Dan, what's the cost of staying in a traveling world that's not traveling?
Well, I'm not sure if the cost, I think for us, we just became irrelevant in that world, no longer needed in the world we were in. And that was before COVID popped up. But some of the things we had been doing, some of the passions we had were no longer wanted or needed. So the cost of staying there would have been, you didn't have a place in that world.
Sure.
So there was no place there.
Yeah.
And that's hard. But a few years ago, we read a book that was talking about our encore. What was the first part of the encore book? Launching your encore. It talks about as you get older, you have to relaunch your future. And so the cost of staying there would have been just, you would have been redundant.
It's a great book by Rick and Kathy Hicks, Launching Your Encore. So the cost, so how can you trust more? By trust, you might need to trust yourself more. Maybe we'll need to trust the process. You might need to trust others in here. How can you trust more?
Now, is this in the old or have I moved from it?
You're in the old normal going towards the new normal. Yeah. How can you trust more?
Yeah, I think it's a huge step of trust for me, because in the past we would trust OM would ring and call and want something. Different teen streets would call and want something. People would be calling and then no one calls. And so you have to think, well, who do I put my trust in? And we've gathered around us a very incredible team of 20-somethings that are speaking into us. And if they say something, we're listening. And so that's where I think I'm putting on my trust is what is this next generation that we're working with actually saying? And how do I listen? How do I lean into that and catch the things that will catch me up into this new world rather than my old world?
Yeah, thank you for that. I hear you. So what baggage needs unpacked? So when you're in the old world, in the old way of thinking, you have skills and gifts and ways of doing things, and that needs to be unpacked, because if we're too heavy with the old stuff that's not going to serve us in the new, it needs to be unpacked.
Yeah, I think in my old suitcase, there were a lot of things that I'm an expert in this. I'm an expert in this. I've done this thousands of times. It's the experience. They were amazing, but they no longer really mattered. Mm-hmm. I think I had to really unpack expert and keep explorer, because the world is changing so quickly that simply to it doesn't matter everything you did because we're moving on so quickly. I need to take those experiences and explore how they might be useful into the future. And maybe as the world changes, I need to say, this is the way it was for me, but it's going to be totally different for you. We started Teen Street when I was 26 years old, and talking to a lot of the young people today, they're not at those same places where they actually can build and start something, and that's okay. We did it really quite on our own, where they're going to do it in community. And so there's just unpacking some of the old ways. This is the way we used to do it, which probably means that's not the way we're going to do it anymore.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. What about you? If you don't mind, just put right there in the chat. What are some of the bags that need to be unpacked, taken out of the suitcase, the traveling journey space, and left behind?
Think about Mickey Mouse in that video.
Can you identify any of the things that do not belong in that space? And meanwhile, I'm just looking at the chat here. Alice says, I love this, Alice. Very important. What if we look back at the last time we were in transition and make a note of what that felt like and reassured ourselves of how we adapted? Learning from the past is really good. What to do and also what not to do. Megan says the old normal is comfortable because you know it. Yeah, small steps. In some ways, it's easy if you're pushed out of the old normal rather than having to walk out yourself. Yep. Sometimes it is easier to have that push. And coronavirus, for many of us, made an old be old, and we're not quite sure of the new yet.
Even I think the connection sometimes with God changes. When I was younger, I felt it very clear, God saying, this is what I want you to do. And then the older I got, the transitions were like, God seemed to be saying, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Which was like, whoa, that's a very different place. But not all transitions are the same either.
Yeah. So Alice says, sometimes what we were used to before wasn't actually that comfortable. And yet we want to stay there because change hurts.
Oh, yes.
How many of you would say it's difficult to change? Just say change hard in the chat, or change easy. And we talked about transition, but what about change for us? Dale says stuck is where you can't move, therefore you die. And it could be physical, spiritual, emotional, mental.
Yeah, it's like what I was talking about on the bridge, when you just sort of freeze right there in place.
Yep. It does come to courage. Megan is reminding us, fearing the change will be just as painful, more painful as where you are.
Oh,
you guys are really
yes.
Giving the comments that you're getting it. You're helping us understand it with new language as well.
Who said that?
That was Ellie.
Ellie, I just also
Thank
said
you, Ellie.
Part of that is that mentality that what if we go through this transition and what we thought was going to happen doesn't happen? What if there is no plan B? That's a scary thing as well.
Yeah, and Cheryl said, I agree with Megan that we need each other to push us on. We need to encourage each other and reach out to others. And that's why it's so good you showed up here for yourself and for others. And Stephen, great comment. It's always hard to move out of the comfort zone we're in. Moving forward means we lose the control. And Matt says, I'm going to just pop back a slide. He says, I think that's what's good about the picture. The new normal is a question mark and not an arrow. That uncertainty is what stops us moving forward, right? We need to move forward, but wow, it's hard. And then Catherine says, for me, it's been really mind-blowing to really grasp the fact that God cannot fail, because that would go against his very nature. Yep. Katie reminds us there's a lot of expectations that have to be unpacked. You're right. Hannah's agreeing with Stephen. I need to unpack habits of hiding out, STIRBs, short-term energy relieving behaviors. And if you haven't learned about that, go to our YouTube and watch Kim tell us about STIRBs. Laziness, change is hard, a lot of change hards. Oh, wow, yeah. Okay, so Kim, Megan, Stephen, Catherine, Rob, Nadine, Ellie, Matt, Cheryl, Dale, Susie. Change is hard for us. That's right. It can be hard. Do we see change as an opportunity or threat? Good question, Alice. We need to see it as an opportunity.
Here's one thing that came to me. One of the comments was about needing the push. I think my mom said it, and immediately my mind went to when I was just a little boy taking my swim lessons, and the pool had a high dive. There was nothing I wanted more than to jump off the high dive. It was just, I have to do that, maybe because I'm a risk taker. But I got to the top and I couldn't jump, and my teacher had to come and actually push me off. I wanted to jump so badly, but I needed that push. Not just once, several times. She had to push me off, but eventually I could jump on my own. And sometimes we just need that community around us that says, okay, here we go, and gives us that push, because we want to go there. It's just somehow to make our feet move. Yeah,
Katie, good point here about the church. I hope that our church can unpack some of these transitions together, but I'm afraid it won't happen. I'm afraid that the church will just try to repackage the old way of doing things without really thinking through it. Here on Duzie Live and in what we're doing, we are very committed to helping people through transition. And so upcoming Duzie Lives are going to be continuing about transition. We've got a couple very fun things coming up for next week. Hold on and we'll tell you about it. But take a little break from this to celebrate a little bit. Megan says, I find sometimes I go crazy a bit and go, okay, I'm going to change, and I'm going to shave my head, or I'm going to give up my job, and I'm not sure those are good decisions. Just these are coping mechanisms, I hear you say, Megan. That's interesting. I think we want to jump back to the bridge of change for a moment. Keep putting all your thoughts right here in the chat. I love this. We'll come back to them again.
What Susie means is back to Dan.
Back to Dan. So going from the old normal to the new normal, we go over that bridge of change and over what we call the valley of emotions. Now, Kim gave us a emotions chart last week, and we found another one that's a little bit simpler that has 8 main emotions.
And it looks like a flower, and Susie loved that.
And the question is, right here at the X, the old normal, or getting onto the bridge, what emotions are you experiencing? And here is a particular, it's Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions. And I'm going to just put this as a shareable file right here if you want to have that. And then Kim also had a more detailed one, and I'm going to also share that one for those of you who didn't get it. But we want to try to add this wheel of emotions. And one of the reasons I like this particular wheel is you see the intense color in the center, and then there's a middle layer of these 8 main emotions: joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, anticipation. When you get out of to the edges of those, it's just a little bit. Like a little bit of joy is serenity or peace, and a lot of joy is ecstasy, like wow. Anger is another one on the left side, the red one. The middle bit is anger. If you just have a little bit of anger, it turns out as annoyance. And when you get intensely angry, it's rage. The other thing I like about this particular one. If you don't see
the purple one actually is a loathing. If you can't see that,
disgust,
loathing, or boredom. I thought that was very interesting.
For example, anticipation and joy. If you're right in the middle of those, for example, another petal of that flower is optimism or positivity, or joy and trust. I find this one fascinating. If you have joy and trust, it goes towards love. Love requires you to have both joy and trust. It made me think. I'm not sure if I agree with every bit of it, but it made me think.
So this is a way that when you're going through the valley of emotions, you need to identify what you are feeling. And if you were with us on the grief ones, we looked at sometimes 2 opposite ones, like on the wheel. If you have fear and anger, or trust and disgust, that may mean you're in grief because you're feeling 2 opposite emotions, which is okay. But you just recognize that that's where you are.
I hope you're doing what Kim recommended for us, journaling or identifying your emotions every day. What would you say your emotions are today? You can choose any of them emotions there on that chart, or the other chart, any of the emotions that you are feeling today, what would you say are your emotions in this particular stage, somewhere probably between the old and the new of emotions? So Dan, I'm going to ask you. Here you are between the old normal and the new normal. What are the emotions that you are experiencing?
I think on a daily basis, these are the emotions I come face to face with.
Okay.
Number one is anticipation. I wake up with the dream, fully alive. I thought about it all night. There is a great sense of anticipation. And then there sets in a sadness that I am not there yet. I don't know if I'll get there. And oftentimes that'll lead me into a fear, which causes me to go do some more research, which brings me back to anticipation. So for me, I think I am moving around that second circle from anticipation into sadness, into fear. I get a little hope and joy, and then I sort of circle around those three right now.
Right.
A lot.
Thank you. I hear you. I think I'm experiencing much of that as well. And if we just go back and look at anticipation, sadness, fear, that's almost a triangle. So you have multiple conflicting emotions that are going on at the same time. And that is a piece of grief, or that is also a very normal in our time right now of transition.
And when it really get intense, I can see how they move into the next circle, because there are times where I feel almost the terror. There are times though that it is like, just get out of my way. There is a vigilance of this is going to happen. The train is left the station. But I also tell you, there are many days of grief that I want to go back to the way life was. It was so much easier. And so that would be grief. So those, I can see how in the intense times it goes to the center, but in my normal, it's in that second circle.
Thank you, Dan. I hear you. Really appreciate you sharing vulnerably like this. Let's look here. Some of us have put this, how you're feeling. Kim says, felt overwhelmed until connecting here. You're here in the love zone. We have big hearts and trying to have big ears as well.
God loves you, and we have a wonderful plan for your life.
Matt says apprehension, distraction, optimism, hope, trust. Thank you, Matt. Megan says, see, it's the fear doesn't paralyze you, Dan. I find the fear paralyzes me. Yeah, fear can be good, but we have responses to all these. And one more reminder, emotions are not bad or good. Emotions are emotions. And it's very important for us to take a look vulnerably and authentically at what our emotions are. It's the response to the emotion and our behaviors that make a difference. So very important for us to identify the emotions and be present right here in this space.
I'm not sure if fear paralyzes me, but it may have given me a couple kidney stones. So I'm still walking, but with a limp.
Yeah, Matt says, true that, Megan. The church has to be the place where we have the safety to have open conversations. That's right. And those of us who are not in the church, we're not in the church because we're not in the church. We can't meet up. We have our people and we have our online communities that hopefully we're learning to pour into in this season.
Yeah.
Did you have something else?
Dale had a question. Was it easier or comfortable or reliable? I'm not sure what that was for.
Is that about his pain or is that about his emotions? Maybe you can clarify, Dale. That would be great. Megan said, I grew up in the church that said emotions were bad, so it's hard to get past that sometimes. Thank you for sharing that, Megan. Yes, many of us grew up like that as well. So we should identify once again the emotions of the old normal, which I think we're in transition of on that left side of the bridge. But also we visualize that we had dreams toward the new emotions and the emotions that are going to be worth it. Maybe now that you've identified your old emotions, where can you see your new emotions going when you're thinking about the new normal? Wondering if any of you would be willing and can identify some of those and put those into the chat. What did you say your new emotions were once again?
My new
Towards the
emotions?
future. Towards the future, the new normal.
Oh, the new normal.
Yes.
Um,
You went from anticipation, sadness, and fear in the old normal. Where are your new emotions going in the new normal?
I would say some of it goes to the white spaces, because I think there's a sense of awe when I believe we're there. There's an awe of what God is going to do with this generation.
Mhm.
I think there is a definitely an optimism. I love the characteristics I see in 20 somethings. There's this new entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
There is this sense of, we're not just going to do it the old way. We're not, just because it's always been done, that probably means it's not effective. I love some of the, in an honest forum, they're not afraid to say,
Yeah.
let's rethink this. Where I think some generations before, it's more of, we'll turn to your neighbor and we'll talk about it, and maybe, well, what does the community think? I think there's much more of an independent spirit to move forward, and to me that makes me very optimistic, and it causes me to think that at that space there is more trust, because I believe people are going to be much more gut honest, because it's almost life or death. We're either going to move forward or we're going to cease to move.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So you're moving from anticipation, sadness, and fear towards awe and optimism. Thank you for identifying that. Let's pop down to dangers. So as we're crossing that bridge, here's a couple of questions that we need to ask. What am I afraid of, and what is stopping me?
Afraid? I think I'm afraid of it not being successful, and I'm afraid of it being successful. Both of those are fears that, what if this thing really does take off? What if this thing doesn't? So I'm between both of them. So that'd be some of my biggest fears is, will this work? And if it does, what will it cost?
All right. And what's stopping me? Many times what's stopping me is me. And we talked a little bit earlier about, we need that push. Many of us need somebody to journey with us. We need, Katie's talking about a small group community instead of having a big weekly event. We don't have to change that. And she wants to find deep people to do life with.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's where we'll come out of this pandemic, is a much deeper need for intimate community, not just to belong to something, but be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the emotions. Thank you for putting it in there. Matt said, same as Dan, awe and optimism. Dale says, interest, optimism, acceptance. A word I do not see is hopeful. Yep. That's tough when you don't see hope about it.
Well, that's not actually on the.
Oh, he would like to see that in there. Oh, I get that. Oh yeah.
I was looking for hope when I was going around there too. And it's like, oh, this chart is hopeless.
Yeah. Megan's afraid of being homeless or being financially insecure. Dale says fear and stopping is insecurity. Deep people, it's a difficult thing to find. Yeah. So these are dangers. It's stopping me because I don't have the depth. And where are those deep people?
I think because deep people have had to go to deep spaces. And sometimes when you go to deep spaces, that's from deep pain. And sometimes those people are asking too many questions to come back into some of the old normal. And so sometimes some of the circles that maybe it's a church, maybe I don't know, but sometimes there's void of some of those people who've been through some really difficult things. They are there. I've seen them. They're there. They speak, but sometimes they can't remain there because they've experienced something more. I don't know.
Yep. So let's go to the bridge portion of it. And thank you. Please keep writing your dangers, your emotions, the whole process here. It's so helpful to see that we're in a group of people that are experiencing very similar things to us. And I think this helps normalize it a bit. It doesn't reduce it, but it is helping us normalize it a little bit. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the small steps across the bridge from the old normal to the new normal. So what are my 5 small steps? Once again, we might not know what each of those small steps are, but knowing that there are different micro transitions, micro changes that need to take place to get to the new normal. Do you know any of your small steps?
Well, I think for us, step one was to begin looking at a new world. So the online world, we're taking courses and that. So I think awareness of what actually was available was step one. And we have taken courses, we've completed some courses. So I feel like I still don't know anything until I talk to someone who doesn't know anything. And then it's like, wow, I actually do know. So I think I've transitioned into, I understand this world.
So awareness and understanding.
Yeah. And
Write it down.
Contributing out to others.
Okay.
I can speak about it.
So you've got some small steps. Now you're not there yet. So you probably have 4. You've got awareness, understanding, contributing are some of your small steps. And you might have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The important thing is to actually have forward momentum. And one of the questions that we need to ask ourselves and others, what or who will help with forward momentum? Alice pulled out, we've got to have God in the midst of that. And hopefully God in our relationship with Father God is in the old normal and the new normal. But as we experience him, the idea is forward momentum. It's still a question mark over there, even though we see an arrow, but we're trying to get to the new normal. And sometimes we need help on number 2, for example, or number 3, because our foot went through the bridge and we got a little bit stuck, and we need somebody to sit with us and listen to us with that big heart and 2 listening ears who love and affirm who we are. We might need prayer partners, prayer warriors. We might need a counselor or a therapist or a coach. We might just need a friend. Come with me across the bridge. What or who will help you with your forward momentum?
I think we've put people in place because we can guess what the world's like as a 20-year-old, but we're not 20. So we've put together a group that we call our tribal leaders that we are in regular contact with. Any ideas and thoughts? It's not enough that I did this in the past, so I'm going to know how to do it in the future. I've got to ask. I've got to hear the pain points. We've got a dialogue. I think people even like Kim in the last couple of weeks talking about some of the things from an expert point of view. Yes. So we've really reached out much more than intentionally than ever before to listen to people's stories, to hear what they're saying, to collect the ideas. Some of our original thoughts we have totally tossed out because we realize that is not going to work. That is old thinking. Toss it out. We can't hold those things. That's what we call unpacking, because there's stuff into the new normal that we can't take. If you notice that bridge, there's no U-Haul going across that bridge. There's no moving van taking my past with me. Yeah. There's only a few things I can take. And those I have to learn from those who maybe are ahead of me on the journey, who are in the generation, who have studied this intensely. Conversations with my brother, just on the way some of the mental things are taking place today. Those are so beneficial. I've never had to go there before, but that is giving me forward momentum.
I'm going to come back to this in the chat in just a moment, but here is our bridge of change in the totality. And I also want to just, for those of you who have stayed here to the end of this portion, we're very soon going into the backstage discussing it, but I want to share this this presentation with you for those of you who would like to download that.
We don't normally give away all our slides, but if you were here today, you can have everything we've just talked about, because it'll help you and it'll help others to process.
So this is only available for you who are showing up. It will not be available on the replay. So go ahead and download that. If you are here now and for some reason you can't download that, just send me an email and ask me for the download of the Bridge of Change, and I'll be happy to do that.
Say, Susie, give me the download.
And just in case you haven't already, you got it on your phone, or you want to do a screenshot of this particular page and this particular page, and I'll go back there in a moment. Those are the 2 pages that might be great reference for you.
Just keep them on your phone.
So there's that one again. There's a little camera snap there.
5. We'll go back to work. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the other one?
And the next one of
One,
this wheel, this flower wheel of
3,
emotions.
4, 5. You should have snapped it by then.
Those who
But
know
anyway,
how to do it,
you'll
you're
have
probably
it.
there.
You'll have it in the PDF.
Yeah, so I just want to go into the chat now. I think we're potentially officially backstage. For those of you who need to leave, thank you for joining us.
Please understand as well, I haven't made it to the new normal yet.
No.
And I think sometimes we want to feel like we've got to get there. I may be on about 2.5. I think if I look at this chart, I'm probably on 2.5. I'm hoping I'm at least on 2.5. But this is a very long bridge over a lot of emotions. There are days where Susie crashes. There are days that I crash, and it means don't jump off the bridge. Just hold on and take one more step.
Yeah.
And then we need to celebrate each success. When we're done with Duzie Live today, this is one more step. And we stop to celebrate because we can't celebrate arriving at the new normal yet.
We just
can
celebrate the step
today.
Right. So before we go into backstage, where we're going to go through your chat and your questions, and we want to hear more, what else do you want to hear? We just want to do a couple of announcements. On Sunday, May 24th, it is Dan and I's 34th anniversary. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So we're celebrating this week. We haven't completely decided. We love to take trips, but I think it's going to be a day trip this year. But we do something special. Tell them about ice cream.
Every year on our anniversary, we have an ice cream party. And the ice cream party is we have to have a scoop of ice cream for each year. So it started off, I think we started on the second year, but it's grown. And we should not. We would like to, but we will not have 34 scoops ourselves. So what we do, we invite people on our anniversary to go somehow, and you may have to go to the store and buy a container of ice cream, but to have a scoop celebrating our anniversary. And then we also have 34. You don't have to have 34, but you have to keep count of how many scoops you do have.
Please take a photo of it and post it on one of our social media. So Facebook, Instagram.
You'll see it there where to do that, but we invite you. And then we're also going to do something we've never done before. I have found the original videos of our wedding. And there are 2 videos, and I'm right now in the process of mixing it. And we're going to invite people on a watch party to go through our wedding with us. And we're going to be there sort of chatting what we're going through and getting more. It is hilarious.
So I think we're going to do it here on this platform because we're going to watch it, and then people can chat and make comments, and we're going to be there chatting and laughing at ourselves as well.
Back to the day of big hair. That's coming up. You'll get an.
You're not going to want to miss that, because this was the part where Dan prepared this amazing song to sing to me in the midst of our wedding ceremony.
No spoiler alerts here. Anyway, if you join us, you'll see what took place.
Come, you don't want to miss that. It's awesome. And in honor of our 34th anniversary, you don't just get to 34 for nothing. We want to have next week's Duzie Live be all about relationships. Now, we'd love to hear from you what you'd like to hear about relationships.
Probably several weeks.
Yeah, so we're not necessarily talking about guy-girl relationships, although that'll probably come in there. Relationship goals might be in there. How to have good, it's already been in the chat here already. How do we go deeper with people? How do we have these people who are going across the bridge with us?
Or for some of you, as you mentioned, maybe you're an adult, but you're living with your adult parents. What does that relationship look like? So we're gonna dive full head on for probably several weeks, looking at the whole area of relationship from different points of view. Because as we move through transition, if we don't look at our relationships, it's not going to go forward well.
Yep. And then also we want to remind you that we have a Facebook group called Fully Alive Revolution. If you haven't been there, we're just putting it the connection right there. So we have put the connection there. You can click on that if you're not already into the private Fully Alive Revolution. What should we expect there?
Well, there's a lot of stuff coming there that we're not putting anyplace else. I was going to launch some things yesterday, which I will launch today. But because of the kidney stones, we didn't do that. So there are some new things coming. But it is right now, this month, the time to be creatively alive. There are poems. There's writings. There's step-by-step instructions on how to make your own kombucha. I mean, there's some really good stuff there.
There's
aliveness.
Laments, and there's movies, and there's Matt Taylor crossing his slack line, and all of his, he's probably at 4 maybe on the bridge to change of getting to his slack line. It's so good, Matt. Love your videos.
He can now go from the ground. He can jump up onto it. His next step will be to jump up into a flip and land back on it.
We cannot wait to see that.
You'll want to see that. Anyway.
That's great. So any questions, comments, or emotional outbursts about that? This weekend, eat ice cream and take a photo and document how many scoops, because we're going for the biggest record of internationally. How many scoops?
Last year was 200 and some scoops we had last year. So we're going to try to beat that.
So gather your family, gather your friends, and everybody have a scoop and celebrate us, please. Thank you.
An ice cream bar equals 1 scoop. So, just that was asked last year.
Yeah, it can be any version. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We're about to go backstage if you have to leave. Thank you so much for coming. And on future ones, if you find value in this, invite a handful of friends to join us as we grow this platform of Duzie Live.
Yeah, awesome. So here we go. I want to jump back to our slides again. And here we were, who or what will help us? And we've got quite a number of items in the chat that I don't want to miss. Let's see, where were we? Kim, thank you for sharing this. Fear. Will I experience compassion and empathy fatigue again? Wow, for people who are helpers and who are those big hearts and listening ears, you just put yourself out there so far that it's difficult in there. Pari says fear of not being relevant anymore. That was my cry yesterday and the day before. Like, do I have what it takes for this season of my life? Sometimes that's very difficult on the bridge of change from the old normal to the new normal. Megan says, and I do feel like finding the deep people is a bit like doing the hokey pokey. You have to put your left leg in, put your right leg in, and check the temperature of the relationships. Yes, Megan, show up next week. I know you're going to have some valuable questions and comments when we talk about relationships next week in Duzie Live.
But I think it's also hard to go to deep spaces with people who haven't gone to deep spaces. So in a way, you're looking for people who have a story.
Yeah.
Who have a story that may be uncomfortable. And I think that's part of the journey that that's needed. When you're in some of those pain points, you don't necessarily want the answer person. You want someone who might honestly say, you know what, I don't understand it all, but I care and I'll listen.
I've been there and I don't know, but I care. Let's sit together.
Yeah, because I think there's sometimes that maybe within our culture of the past or whatever, there's just been this mentality that we have to, I understand how you're feeling. Where in fact we don't, because we're not them. And so how do we move forward as a good listener, but have our own stories?
And sometimes we just need, when we're thinking about this question that's even up on the screen right now, what or who will help with forward momentum? For me, I have identified my battle right now is, am I enough? And Michaela, who's here in the chat as well, she helped me identify what my new normal will be. And so it is, I am victorious. So I'm in the battle, and the battle for me is, am I enough? And we were talking about it together, and it came up, victory is the new normal, but victory is like a one-time event. And Michaela helped me understand that is, I am victorious. So it's a continuous process of it. And so when I'm feeling like, am I enough? No, but I'm on that bridge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know which number I'm at, but I'm in process of, I am going towards the new normal of being victorious. And so God is enough in me, and I have my people, the tribal leaders and other friends and people speaking into me that are helping me with this forward momentum as well. It's very vulnerable. It's like the shaky bridge. It's not easy to be on that bridge in an unstable situation with so many dangers down below.
And I want to speak a little bit to Dr. Rob. Do you ever get off the bridge? I think you do. There have been times in my life where I felt I was in the new normal, and I was living. I was possessing the land. I had ownership, and I think that's good. I think if you study history over the last 100 years, there have been very large moments in time where people were able to settle. And that is very, very important. In the day we live today, like for instance, if you look at business models, Ford Motor Company, they could set a business model in place and keep it for 50 years and then change it. Today, businesses as well as individuals are changing those things so rapidly that I don't think we can stay off the bridge very long today, personally. But I think we can get off, we can enjoy it. But if we understand the process of crossing the bridge and we realize we need community, we need to take the little steps, we need to celebrate the victories, yep. I think it makes it easier. But I think we do have to have times where we just Sabbath, where we step off the bridge. I'm not saying jump off the bridge. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you step off the bridge.
You bungee off
and
back up.
You're able to go through the harvest process a little bit more, which is you take time to plant, you water, you wait, you harvest. I think if we're always on the treadmill, what we talked about last week or the week before about the hamster wheel, I think that's not healthy. So yeah, I think there are times we get off, but I don't think we stay off as long as humanity used to.
Some of you have identified your steps. Dale said, step 1 of this COVID-19 time was forced out of the nest. Yes. Kim says, step 1, name the fear. This is an aha moment for me now. I can ID some small steps. Yeah, that's awesome. I think sometimes our steps are a mental change. For me, when I'm talking about my old normal of not having the body weight and the physical new normal exercise fit person that I'm going towards, and I'm in the stage, my step 1 was decide I want to do it. Step 2 is find a program that I could do, and it's called Betty Rocker. And the first challenge was make fat cry, and I love the name of that challenge. And I was like, yeah, I can do hard things. And then third step was be consistent for me in the exercise process. And there are days, the last 3 days were really tough for me. And it came into the evening and I was like, I don't want to do it. But then I wouldn't get to 90. And I did. I got to 92 today. And so those steps, that forward momentum of going, like, I really want what's coming on the other side of the bridge. I do not want to go back to the old normal. And actually, most of the time for us, there isn't even a possibility to go back to that normal over there. Dale said, should we arrive? I would argue that maybe that would get us comfortably stuck, comfortably numb again. A lack of safety may be what helps push us forward again. You want to speak about a lack of safety?
Well, I'm not sure about a lack of safety. I think if we're walking in safety, and this is where I think the community side is so important, that you have people around that you are safe in. I don't know, in a society that's so rapidly changing, I'm not sure how we can't live unsafe, and yet our safety, we sort of have to take it with us. We can unpack the bags, but we've got to include the people in the journey. So that's be interesting to unpack that. Maybe that can be a discussion you and I have, Dale. That would be that's a good thought.
Sally Ababa, thanks for being on here. I didn't know you were here. Congratulations on our anniversary, and definitely we'll have some ice cream. You love ice cream. Mm-hmm. Go, Sally. Have some beautiful Filipino mango ice cream. So nice. Megan wants to know what's our favorite ice cream flavors.
Well, they would have to have something with nuts in it. Right now, it'd probably be praline, pecan. I'm in Georgia, so it's pecan, pecan, whatever.
Yeah, I definitely like a vanilla base with a bit of chocolate in it. If there can be chunks and almonds in it, that's so good. And then fruit on top. Why not? Let's just have it like that.
Anything with calories would be good at this point.
OM Style, what's your story? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Kim. I think that might just be a comment. Stephen said, Dr. Rob, when you cross from the old normal to the new normal will become the new old normal. And it will come to a point that you need to cross another bridge to a new normal. It's an endless cycle, but good thing we have the experiences and wisdom to deal with it or to move forward. Stephen, that's a great point. You're right. It is not just one bridge to change. This is our current bridge to change. And if we're dealing with things emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, for example, we could have 3 bridges to change going at the same time. That's a little bit daunting, I think, but very important for us to understand the old and the new, where you're going, these basic elements that we have here just in our picture, the old, the new, the valley of emotions in the process of getting across at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the dangers down below, or the dangers of not going across the bridge, or the dangers of falling off and not being safe in the process of going across.
And for those of you who've left the ship at some point, you know that moment where your baggage are at the bottom, you run back up and you swipe out for the last time. That's a major life transition, because then there's the flight home, then there's the family, and then there's I got to get a job, all that stuff. Those are the big bridges that you have to really be intentional on. But there's also the little bridges that are along the way that sometimes you don't even notice, that those also need some unpacking. So yeah, I agree that hopefully there is a forward momentum until the day we die.
Yeah.
But they're not always going to be your last swipe. Sometimes they're going to be very pleasant.
Yeah. Rob has a great comment here. Sometimes you want encouragement from people off bridges. And for me, this is so true. Many, many times, Dan is great because he sees what's ahead. He sees the difficult. We love to hike. This weekend, we'll be hiking or kayaking for our celebration for our anniversary. And we love to hike. And so many times he sees something ahead of the space, which would be like a bridge for us. And he gets over there and he hands back a stick, or he reaches out. He gets stable in the new normal space, and he reaches back to grab me and pull me and make sure I get there safely. And many of us need that. I need that so often. I need somebody who's just a little bit farther ahead to say, come on, this board is shaky, but this one right here, you can stand on. I think that's like the word of God is able to be stand on, our stories, our experiences, like people who have been in those hard spaces, like we've been talking about, can say, it is possible. I've been where you are. Of course, I haven't been exactly where you are, but I do understand that. And I really care, and I'm praying for you, and I'm standing with you. And please call me anytime or reach out to me anytime. Back in the day, we could say, let's just meet up. That day will come soon again. But we do need people who are off the bridge to pull us. And I love that picture, Rob.
Have those stable people in your life that you can call. I call my parents quite often, and they know I call them. They appreciate it. But to me, it's like there's always a rock there. And if we don't have those rock people in our life, it's so easy to wonder what's ahead. And if those rock people are people who've journeyed this, then they can tell some of their stories. They can go, oh, I feel so bad for you. And I remember at one time, you go into those spaces and you go, wow, it's okay. It's okay. So I think you have to have those rock people in the midst of whatever storm you are.
And I love campfire moments where people are just sitting around in a relaxed environment, or sitting around in somebody's lounge having a cup of tea, or after dinner, and the stories come out. Mm-hmm. And many times I just remember the stories of other people who have been in a situation that's similar or something very different. Some months ago, I think it's months ago now, we were talking about being courageous. And we had John Mark Earl, our nephew up in Canada, who was doing 100 days of dipping in the ice. And he had courage. And many of his stories and many of his experiences, even though he's not on the bridge with me right now, but that was a hard thing he did. And many times that is motivation for me. It's like he's off the bridge through his story, and he's reaching out and pulling me up. Yeah. And I love that.
We were reading a book about post-traumatic stress disorder, And they say the two things that pulls people out the most are community and stories.
That's right.
And so I think whenever we're on these bridges, we've got to be hearing the stories of people who've gone before, people who've taken, you're on step 3, maybe they've taken step 4 already. Those kind of stories are very important.
I'm just going to turn the slides off, if that's all right. I think we've got the picture there. If you don't, you've got the picture there to download.
Coming in
So
there.
Cheryl says we need to be forced out of the comfortable, and this Duzie Live has helped in the transition time. Sometimes we long from the old normal because we didn't have the new thoughts farther down. And I think it's very important. That's why we started with the new normal. Where are you going and what's that going to look like? We've got some ice cream comments. Sorry about the flood, but farther down this new road, the new can be good if we're willing to learn new things.
Yeah.
That's right. We always have to grow and move forward because our world around us is not staying the same. It just does not stay the same. It is forever changing. And if we get stuck in one little space, we can be in that space for a while and develop our expertise or our skills or get to the new normal and then lay in the hammock under the palm tree and drink a nice cold drink on the beach, for example. That's a nice picture for me. And we can enjoy that moment. But then, as Stephen and Rob were helping us understand, there will be another bridge to cross. So yeah, it's from bridge to bridge to bridge. But those kind of lands with bridges are really very exciting.
Dale has a comment. Remember, the bumblebee could not fly if they realized their wings were actually too small to carry their weight. Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we might not have big enough wings to take us where we need to go.
And sometimes one of the most difficult things in this transition are the people who will say, well, you can't make it.
Yeah.
Or what I've heard several times is, when I was your age, I tried that as well. It just didn't work. Oh, that's so discouraging. You can move forward. You need to move forward. And we want to encourage you to do that.
Yeah. So Joshua 1:9, I love this. And I think it goes well with what's going on with us. Joshua 1, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So wherever you are, old, new, bridge, potentially in the danger zone you're feeling in the midst of the valley of emotions, the Lord our God is with us wherever we go. So be strong and courageous. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt gives a little comment on the bumblebees. Thank you for that. I need to have a conversation with the bumblebee to find out really what's going on with them. Anyway, we have them all over the place and they're flying quite well. So some of them I want to say, hey, you can't fly, and just let them crash. But anyway, Rob says, what was wrong with the old normal? What a great question. I'm not sure if it's wrong. I just think it was.
Yeah.
And I think this is the problem with people that are just deconstructing their faith many times, is because they have moved on from what was in their church experience to something new, then everything was wrong in that experience. And I don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of things right, but we can't live there. And there's an incredible house in Marlette, Michigan that I used to own. I love that house. It was probably my favorite house, but I sold it. I can't go live there again.
That old normal is not possible.
There's nothing wrong with that house. It's just I don't live there anymore. And so I think that's the mentality I have, that if I'm done with something, I need to move on.
Yeah.
And every time I go back to Marlette, I walk around that house, I look at it, I remember the good times. Nothing wrong with the memories, but I don't live there anymore. And I think there's a lot of us in transition that just need to speak that out. I don't live there anymore. Yeah. And we need to move forward.
Yeah. Some of our old normals because it's past, and the past will never be, especially when thinking about grief. When somebody dies, for example, that normal of having that person and those celebrations and those experiences and those people in our life will never be again. I have one of my grandmothers, her name to my name for her is Flo Baby. And I was so close to her growing up. And then I went away to university. And it was while I was in the university years, I met Dan. And Flo Baby never got to meet Dan. And I was getting ready to finish my school year. And Flo Baby passed away. And I did not make it from Oklahoma to Michigan to see her before she died. And that was devastating. And so I went through grief of well, actually, it was moments before the funeral started, and I was laying over her body in the casket, just sobbing because that was my goodbye to her. That old normal was gone. And there was many times, especially as Dan and I were developing our relationship, I wanted her to meet my awesome Dan, my man, but she wasn't there. That old normal could never be again. But I was able to think about what would she think about him, and that was really helpful for me. But I had to go to the new normal of life with Dan without Flo Baby, my grandma. And then there are other people who have come into our lives. So sometimes the old is just not possible anymore. And the new normal is all we have. Yeah.
Good.
Dale says the old becomes too comfortable. The mind just rides but does not drive. We need to stay on our own driver's seat.
Yeah. And sometimes the old becomes too uncomfortable as well. And we just have to move on.
Yeah. Or that stuck place in the process, 1, 2, or 3 of crossing the bridge of change. We get there and it's just not possible. It's just not a stable environment even for our life. We can't be and do what we need to in the process of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at a couple more here.
Are we missing anything?
Did you get that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. True, Dan. Is there any other questions, comments, emotional outbursts on this or another semi-related subject?
Yay!
We'd love to stick around as long as you want to, but I feel like we potentially are winding down. Again, we invite you, if you want to chat further about this, you can put comments here in the chat. You can contact us by email, connect@duzie.com.
Or you can join us for the 2:00 show, which is always totally different.
Yeah.
It's so hard. This is why on YouTube, when I put up, I thought, let's just put up one. But they're so totally different
yeah.
that I put up the 9 o'clock and the 2 o'clock every week because there's richness in both of them.
Yeah. So again, thank you for showing up. Thank you for joining us live or replay, whichever one you're on. And again, thank you. Those of you who are live, you will get the files that we've been sharing. I'll just give you a couple more minutes if you need that bridge of change presentation with all those questions in there. We're going to turn the sharing off before we end this webinar broadcast. But the feelings wheel and the emotion, the flower wheel of the 8 main emotions, we're going to keep up there for those of you who are on the replay as well.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for everything. Contact us by connect@duzie.com or on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, Duzie Potter.
And just a quick comment with Rob there. I guess it's different when the normals are optional or choices. Yeah. And sometimes the new normal is not an option. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's choice. Sometimes it's choice forced upon you. And this is why I think the transitions are so difficult, because the transition you're in today may be different than the one you're in next year. And so that's why each one we need to go back and say, okay, what do I need to unpack? And hopefully today you've done some unpacking. So thank you for joining us for this Duzie Live. It has been a lot of fun. And I have several notes here of what I've been processing because this has been helpful for me. And when Susie surprised me with, oh, look, why don't we do that with you today? I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm going to learn something.
I thought it was very interesting because Dan always knows what he's going to say. He's always processed it out. And you did it on the fly. High five. I'm proud of you. You did great. Maybe
I did great.
Maybe you could do it for me on the second one. I don't know.
Ooh.
Cheryl's asking.
Oh, that would be different. Yeah.
That'd be fun.
That would be great.
It looks like you like that
I
idea.
like that idea. I get to ask her the questions.
Cheryl says, where's the flower wheel? It's in the downloads. But again, if you can't find it, just send me an email message and I'll send it to you. Yeah, thanks again. Don't forget to have ice cream this weekend and post how many scoops you're having. Have lots of scoops because it's a great celebration.
All right. Well, God bless.
Richard Houston, didn't know you were here, but thanks for jumping in here all the way from Germany. Thanks for all the help with transition, he says. Steven says, thanks for today's session. It's very helpful, and I hope I'll start exercising soon. Yeah.
I'm now, just let you know, Stephen, I'm now on day 19 of exercise.
I know, he's doing so good.
And I just have to tell you, Susie has inspired me, but I hate it every day. I mean, to me, it is like if I was intended to have, a sit-up, God would have made me bent. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. And yet I'm on day 19 and I'm finding some success. So sometimes I just have to say, Dan, just go do it. And I do. And like Susie says, I feel so much better. No, I don't. But anyway, it's good for me.
You look better.
It's good for me. Yes.
You look better.
And I'm standing straighter. There's a lot of things, but there is like, especially that now we have the little dog here, the puppy, exercising with the puppy. Well, that's another story.
That's better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just want to ask, for those of you who are still here and are willing to put right in the chat, what are your takeaways from today? What is something that stands out, a new awareness, something you were reminded of that you are taking from what we learned today about unpacking your transitions, the bridge of change? Would love to hear. Megan wants to know, so you're bending now like a straw?
Yeah, well.
Let's see, can you bend?
I can bend.
Dan is very flexible. He can touch his toes with flat palms on the ground just immediately, and he can usually do the splits. I don't know. Can you still do the splits?
Probably not after yesterday. I'm not doing too many splits at the moment. So.
Matt says, exercise for the win. Rob says, this is his takeaway. Visualize the new normal. You won't always be on this bridge. Step towards that. Yes, Rob. Matt says, my takeaway, take the first micro step and find people to help with forward momentum. Yes, Matt. Me too. Step by step and people to journey with me. Nadine, celebrate each step of the journey. Whoop, whoop. Yes. Feel free to do some exercises for me then, Dan. Okay, Megan, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, if you could pay someone to exercise for you, would that not be incredible?
Yeah, but the benefits you wouldn't get.
Oh,
I don't know how that works. Thank you for those of you who are sharing. Any other takeaways before we close down this amazing Duzie Live? Yes, and I have been very helped by it as well. Thank you for showing up. Stephen says, overcoming my laziness to take the first step. Whoop, whoop. There you go.
Stephen, what
Do
really
it,
helps
Stephen.
me is that I have someone that holds me accountable, and I definitely could not do it if I was just totally focused on me. So find one other person that wants to do it and have them just say, did you exercise today? Just a little reminder like that sometimes is a great help.
Ellie, I love your takeaway. Accepting that it's okay to bungee jump off and come back later. Yes.
Love that.
Yes.
Just make
sure it's a good bounce so it gets you up high enough to get back up again.
And measure the cord really well, because if the cord is too long, it's a painful leap.
Megan says, I'll pay you to do that, Dan. I guess. Oh, so Megan wants Dan to exercise for her. Very interesting.
You can pay me in brownies.
Catherine, she already did, huh?
Yeah.
Catherine said, I love what Dan just said, that there doesn't have to be anything wrong with the old normal. It just isn't where we are right now. And to move forward is an incredible journey, and to not fear the next step on the bridge. Thank you, Catherine.
Nice.
Yes, very true. Megan's takeaway, overcoming my fear, but also having the deep people in my life.
Ooh, very important.
Matt likes what Allie says. Matt probably wants to bungee jump with you, Allie. And Pari says, take time to identify the emotions. Yeah, and Pari, just if you haven't seen the last two good grief Duzie lives, I would encourage you to do that. Kim really gave us such great foundational experiences, and one of the main takeaways from me from the last 2 weeks was to be present with the emotions, identify them, and be present right there. And one of the ways to do that is to use your five senses, to smell, to see, to touch, to taste, to hear. Where am I right now? and reground yourself to that space and be real with the emotions. That's probably step one on the bridge if you haven't already done that. So yeah, me too, Pari. I'm trying to really learn how to identify them and not just press forward, not knowing what I've got going there
And Pari,
what I need to unpack.
and Pari, I would say you're still relevant,
Yes, definitely.
but to a new world.
A whole new world
I definitely would say that.
for you and me.
And she would sing that. Thank you all.
Okay, Ellie's ready to bungee jump physically. Go, Ellie.
Yeah. And that could be a great exercise. You know, bungee jump off and then climb back up. You know, that would be.
Oh,
That'd
let's
be a
put
good
it all
exercise.
together.
Yeah,
Bungee
'cause that
jumping,
way-
cross the bridge,
that-
and exercise.
That way you have to exercise. Otherwise, you're just going to hang there by your feet. So maybe put yourself into a place where you have to exercise.
Or climb the dangerous rocks where there's snakes. Oh, no.
Don't go there. Don't go there. Thanks so much for joining us. And we'll see you next week or in a few hours.
Okay, God bless you. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.